I will gather you from among the nations, and I will bring you back into your own land. These words, ancient and improbable, once sounded like a distant dream. Not a poetic metaphor, but a radical prophecy spoken to a people broken, scattered, and exiled. For more than 2,000 years, the children of Israel had been driven from their land, crushed by empires, hunted in cities, and chased through deserts. They wandered through history like a ghost nation present, but never at home. Their temples were gone, their kings were gone, their language faded, even their hope began to disappear. But still they remembered. Every generation, no matter the suffering, they whispered the same line like a sacred vow. Next year, in Jerusalem. It defied logic, it mocked politics, and yet it was written. Because God had said long ago that though they would be cast out, He would one day bring them back not just to survive, but to live again. And He gave that vision to a man in exile, a man named Ezekiel, who saw what no one else could have imagined, a field of dry bones, long dead, rising to life again. What Ezekiel saw was not just a hopeful picture. It was a detailed prophetic timeline, a road back from death, and it would unfold in 3 stages. First, the bones would come together, the physical return of Israel. Second, flesh and skin would cover them, the political rebirth. But the 3rd stage has not yet happened, because it is the most powerful of all, the breath, the Spirit of God returning. Not just to raise a nation, but to awaken a people. And when that final stage comes, it will shake the nations and confirm what many have forgotten, that Israel is not just a country. It is a clock, God's prophetic timepiece. And each war, each treaty, each uprising, each miracle is another tick, bringing us closer to the final hour. To understand it, we have to go back more than 2,500 years ago. Israel was already falling apart. The once glorious kingdom of David and Solomon had split. 10 tribes in the north had been destroyed by Assyria. And now, only Judah remained in the south, small, fragile, and surrounded by enemies. The kings were weak. Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Zedekiah, they compromised with foreign powers and led their people deeper into idolatry. The temple still stood, but it had lost its glory. Instead of holiness, there was corruption. Instead of worship, there were idols. Instead of justice, there was greed. God had sent prophet after prophet. Jeremiah wept over the people. Isaiah had warned them, but no one listened. They ignored the voice of God again and again. Then came Babylon. In 597 BC, the great king Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem for the 2nd time. This time, he did not destroy the city, but he took thousands of people captive. He stripped Judah of its leaders, its craftsmen, its wealth. And among those taken away was a young priest in training named Ezekiel. He was just 25 years old. Ezekiel was born into the priesthood. His entire life had been shaped by the temple, its rituals, its laws, its calling. According to tradition, he would begin serving in the temple at the age of 30. But instead of standing in the courts of God, Ezekiel found himself beside a dirty canal in Babylon, surrounded by despair. The place was called Tel Abib, a settlement for exiles. It was far from Jerusalem, far from the temple, far from home. For 5 years, Ezekiel said nothing. He watched, he waited. He saw his people wrestle with what had happened. Some believed God had abandoned them. Others believed he would rescue them quickly. Some began to blend into Babylonian life, adopting their gods, their customs, their comfort. Israel wasn't just in exile, they were spiritually fading. They had lost more than land. They had lost direction, purpose, hope, identity. And then, something happened. On the very day Ezekiel turned 30, the day he would have entered the temple to begin his priestly duties, God interrupted history. A storm came from the north, a great cloud, flashing with lightning, burning with fire. Inside the cloud were 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces, human, lion, ox, and eagle. They had wings and moved with speed like no creature on earth. Wheels beside them, wheels within wheels, covered with eyes, moving in all directions. And above them, a throne, glowing like sapphire. And on the throne, a figure, brilliant, radiant, surrounded by fire and a rainbow of emerald light. It was the glory of the Lord. Ezekiel fell face down. Then he heard the voice, "Son of man, stand on your feet, and I will speak to you." God gave him a mission not to serve in a temple, but to be a watchman to the house of Israel, a prophet in exile, a messenger in a foreign land. God warned him, "They will not listen to you. Their hearts are stubborn. But whether they listen or not, they will know that a prophet has been among them." God handed Ezekiel a scroll. It was covered front and back with words of sorrow, lament, and judgment. "Eat it," he said. Ezekiel obeyed. And though it was filled with warnings, it tasted sweet as honey in his mouth. From that moment, Ezekiel's life changed forever. He became God's prophet to a nation that didn't want to listen. And because they wouldn't hear his words, God asked him to act them out to speak through symbolic acts. For 390 days, Ezekiel lay on his left side, 1 day for each year of Israel's rebellion. Then, 40 more days on his right side for Judah's sins. He ate meager rations, bread baked over cow dung, symbolizing the famine that would come when Jerusalem was under siege. He shaved his head with a sword, burned 1/3 of his hair, struck another third with the blade, scattered the last third to the wind. "This," God said, "is what will happen to Jerusalem. 1/3 burned by fire, 1/3 killed by the sword, 1/3 scattered among the nations." Then God gave him the most painful instruction of all. "The delight of your eyes will die, but you shall not mourn." And so it happened. Ezekiel's beloved wife died, and he was silent, because God wanted to show that the fall of Jerusalem would be so sudden, so devastating, there would be no time to grieve. Everything Ezekiel lost, his temple, his home, his wife, was part of his preparation. Because God was about to give him a revelation, the hand of the Lord came upon him, and in a vision, Ezekiel was taken by the Spirit to a vast valley. It was dry, silent, lifeless. Bones were everywhere, scattered across the valley floor. Dry, cracked, sun-bleached, not a single body remained whole. No flesh, no skin, just bones, piles of them. Forgotten, abandoned, left for time to erase. God led Ezekiel to walk among them. Step by step, he heard the brittle crunch beneath his feet. These were not just the dead. These were the long dead, beyond mourning, beyond memory. Then came the question, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Logic said no. Science said no. Experience said no. But Ezekiel had seen the glory of God. He had seen creatures with eyes in every direction. He had tasted judgment and survived. So he answered wisely, "Sovereign Lord, only you know." Then God said, "Prophesy to these bones. Speak to them. Say, 'Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. I will make breath enter you, and you shall live.'" It seemed absurd, but Ezekiel obeyed. He stood in the middle of the dead, and he spoke, and the ground began to tremble. A faint rumble grew into a roar. Bones began to rattle. They moved toward each other, seeking their place, reconnecting in perfect order. Spines aligned, skulls joined to vertebrae, ribs wrapped around lungs, hands, feet, joints. Then tendons appeared. Flesh grew. Skin covered the bodies. What had been scattered bones became fully formed human beings, but they were still breathless. They had structure, but not spirit. They stood, but they did not live. Then God said, "Now prophesy to the breath. Say to the wind, 'Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live.'" Ezekiel spoke, and the Ruach, the divine wind, came. It swept over the valley. It filled their lungs. And the dead lived. An army rose to its feet. Alive, whole, transformed. And then God explained, "Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, 'Our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are cut off.' But I will open their graves, I will bring them back to the land. I will put my spirit in them, and they will live." This wasn't a metaphor, it was a prophetic blueprint. It described exactly what would happen to Israel. Scattered and broken like dry bones, regathered and reassembled like a body, and one day, awakened by the Spirit like a living army. The first two stages have already happened. After nearly 2,000 years in exile, after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, Israel was scattered. They lived as outcasts in every corner of the earth. They were burned in inquisitions. They were blamed in plagues. They were slaughtered in pogroms. They were nearly annihilated in the Holocaust. But they remembered. And on May 14, 1948, the impossible became real. The bones began to rattle again. From over 100 nations, Jews returned to their ancient land. They spoke different languages. They had different customs, but they shared one promise. The land was dry. The enemies were many. But the flag of Israel was raised again. The bones had come together, and the body had formed. But there is one thing still missing: the breath. The bones have returned. The nation has stood again. The land that lay desolate for centuries now bears fruit. Hebrew, once a silent tongue, is spoken in markets and schools. A people long scattered have found each other again. But Ezekiel's vision wasn't just about a body, it was about life. And though the structure is here, something is still missing: the breath. Because when Ezekiel looked over the valley of reassembled bodies, they stood, yes, but they did not breathe. They were complete in shape, but not in spirit. And God said, "Prophesy to the breath." This was the third and final stage of the vision. And it has not happened yet. In 1948, Israel returned. In the decades since, she has flourished militarily, economically, scientifically. The desert now blossoms. Water flows through the Negev. Innovation spills out of Tel Aviv. And yet, as a nation, Israel remains spiritually distant from the God who brought her back. The temple has not been rebuilt. The Messiah has not been received. The covenant has not yet been renewed in their hearts. But it will be. Because the breath is coming, and when it comes, it will not whisper. It will roar. You see, God's plan was never just to bring bones together. He never intended to raise up a nation that simply survives. He is preparing a people to shine. This promise didn't begin and end with Ezekiel. It was confirmed by nearly every major prophet in Scripture. Jeremiah saw it coming, long before the exile ended. "I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people." No more stone tablets, no more external rituals, but an internal, unshakable covenant, one that penetrates the soul. Joel took it even further. He saw a day when God wouldn't just speak through prophets and priests, but through ordinary people. He declared, "I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions." It was a prophecy partially fulfilled at Pentecost, but only among a few. Joel's vision spoke of a national outpouring, a spiritual awakening that would engulf an entire people. And then there was Zechariah, the prophet of return and restoration. He described a moment of collective heartbreak and healing. "I will pour upon the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look upon me whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child." This is not figurative. It is a national, spiritual encounter with the one they rejected. A moment when their eyes are opened and their hearts are broken. Not in despair, but in awe. Paul, writing hundreds of years later in his letter to the Romans, called it a mystery, something that many had misunderstood. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, and then all Israel shall be saved. This is what we are waiting for. It will not be subtle. It will be history-changing. Because the same God who preserved his people through Babylon, through Rome, through Hitler, through every attempt to destroy them will breathe again into their soul. The Spirit of God, the Ruach, will come. And when it does, it won't just awaken Israel. It will shake the entire world. But before that final breath descends, before the spiritual revival ignites, another prophecy must be fulfilled. A war. A strange, terrifying, and detailed war. Ezekiel saw it immediately after the vision of the dry bones. A new revelation, not of life but of conflict. He saw a figure named Gog, the prince of Magog, leading a coalition of nations in an attack on restored Israel. This was no invasion of ancient ruins. This was a future Israel. An Israel gathered from many nations, living in unwalled villages, at peace in its land. And the enemies were not metaphors. They were names tied to real, modern locations. Persia, today's Iran. Kush, today's Sudan. Put, modern Libya. Gomer and Togarma, regions of modern-day Turkey. A great army from the far north, which many scholars associate with Russia. These nations, though distant, converge on a singular target: Jerusalem. The motivation? To plunder, to destroy, to wipe Israel off the map. But God says something remarkable. I will put hooks in your jaws, O Gog, and I will bring you out. He doesn't just predict the attack, he initiates it. Why? So that the nations may know me. It will be a trap not for Israel, but for the enemies of God. They will come in strength, but they will be met by something no military can defeat: God himself. Ezekiel says there will be an earthquake so massive it shakes the earth. Mountains will fall. Soldiers will turn against each other. Confusion will spread like smoke, and then fire will rain from the sky. The invaders will be destroyed not by missiles or alliances, but by the hand of the Almighty. This war will not be like others. It will be a divine judgment. A turning point. A moment when the world is reminded that the God of Israel is not dead, not weak, and not silent. But Ezekiel wasn't the only one who saw it. Zechariah also wrote of a future war, one that would surround Jerusalem and bring devastation. He described a siege where the city would be taken, the houses looted, and the people scattered. But then, the Lord intervenes. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations, as he fights on a day of battle. On that day, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives. This is a literal return, not just of God's presence, but of a person. The same Jesus who once stood on the Mount of Olives, who wept over Jerusalem, who prayed in Gethsemane, who was crucified and raised, will return. The prophet says, "They will look upon me whom they have pierced." And this time, they will not reject him. They will recognize him. They will mourn and believe. Centuries later, the Apostle John, in the book of Revelation, describes the final rebellion of mankind using the same names, Gog and Magog. He sees the nations rising again, once more surrounding the camp of the saints and the beloved city. But there is no battle. Fire came down from heaven and devoured them. And with that, the rebellion ends. History ends. And eternity begins. You see, Israel is not just a place. It's a stage. The scattering? Prophesied. The survival? Prophesied. The return? Fulfilled. The rejection of Messiah? Foretold. The spiritual awakening? Still coming. Every piece is part of a divine pattern, a story written long before the actors were born, and Jerusalem is the center of that stage. It's where Abraham met Melchizedek, where David built his kingdom, where Solomon raised the temple, where Jesus was crucified, and where he will one day rule again. Jesus himself said, "Learn the lesson from the fig tree. When its branches become tender and its leaves appear, you know that summer is near." Israel is that fig tree. And since 1948, its branches have grown. Its leaves are showing, and the clock is ticking. You don't need to be a theologian to see it. You just need to look at the headlines. Israel is back in the land. Enemies gather around her. Peace deals rise and fall. The world's attention is fixed on a city no larger than a small county. Why? Because prophecy is not fiction. It's the roadmap of redemption, and it always leads back to Israel. We are living in the space between the second and third stage of Ezekiel's vision. The bones have come together, the body is formed, but the breath, the Spirit of God, has not yet come, but it will. And when it does, it will not stop with Israel. It will pour out across the earth. It will ignite revival in the nations. It will awaken hearts that have slept for generations. Because when Israel breathes again, when the veil is lifted and the Messiah is embraced, it will signal the final phase of God's plan. This is not about nationalism. This is about salvation. This is not about religion. This is about redemption. And you are alive to witness it. You are watching prophecies fulfilled in real time. You are seeing what Ezekiel could only describe in visions. So now the question comes, what will you do with it? Will you watch the final countdown and shrug? Or will you see what God is doing and respond? The valley is no longer empty. The bones are no longer scattered. The army is standing, and the wind is coming. So I ask you, do you believe we're living in the final pages of history? Do you believe the vision Ezekiel saw is coming to pass? Are you ready for the breath of God? Because it's not just coming for Israel, it's coming for the world. And when it does, the countdown will end. And a new beginning will rise. Now that you've seen how an ancient prophecy has unfolded word for word, step by step the question shifts from, what does this mean? To something far more personal, what will you do with it? Because the story of Israel isn't just about one nation. It's about the entire world. It's about you. It's about the final countdown we're now witnessing with our own eyes. The bones are standing. The enemies are gathering. The breath is coming. And the King is returning. So which side of this story will you be on? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. We want to hear from you. And if you found this message powerful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to understand how everything happening today fits perfectly into biblical prophecy. God bless you.